Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hormone Balance Solution podcast. So this episode is all about breast health, which is really near and dear to my heart because breast cancer and ovarian cancer run in my immediate family. So it's something that I obviously think about, and I think it's something that a lot of women think about. Breast cancer is something that many, many women are very, very scared of, and I can understand why. I do want to say, however, that especially when detected early, there is a very, very high survival rate of breast cancer. When it comes to women's health, far more women die from heart disease than breast cancer. And I don't think a lot of women know this fact. I don't know, maybe it's because there's so much marketing around breast cancer and, the pink ribbon, but it's really, in my opinion, not as scary as heart disease. So I'll definitely do an episode on heart disease, but this episode is on breast health, which is very, very, very important, obviously. So we're going to dive into breast health. Before we do that, so I'm trying this out. I'm trying to do video. I'm going to be doing more episodes with video so that I can put them up on YouTube, because I know people like to learn in different ways. Some really like to listen, some like to watch video. So we're going to try this out to see how it goes. I've got my notes here, of course, that I'm going to be referring to. And I did want to ask you a question. Do you prefer longer episodes, podcast episodes, or do you prefer shorter episodes, like 10 minutes, 15, 20 minutes? Let me know. And you can let me know by coming on over to Instagram. That's probably best. I'm at Tarathon Health. Come on over, just DM me, tell me what you like, or you can email me, tara@tarathonnutrition.com, because I want to be giving you what you want. So I always welcome any feedback on the types of episodes you would like me to do and the lengths as well. All right, so we're going to jump into breast health. We're going to talk about the things that you can do to protect your breasts. Now, yes, breast cancer is something that we are thinking about when we talk about breast health. But obviously, if you are somebody who gets really painful breasts, then this episode is for you. If you're somebody who has fibrocystic breasts, then this episode is for you. So general breast health and what we can do and what we should avoid in order to support our breasts. So jumping in, number one is probably pretty obvious, or maybe it's not obvious, but alcohol. Alcohol is not a good idea if you want to do everything you can to protect your breasts from cancer and cancer in general, right? And I say this every time I talk about cancer, it doesn't discriminate. And I say that because I think I don't want anybody to feel like it's their fault. Cancer is never anybody's fault. It is a very multifaceted, complex disease that we don't know everything about. And there's no one reason for why someone gets cancer. And it doesn't discriminate either. So, there's no shame, there's no blame, there's no guilt in cancer. All we can do is the best we can. But, there are a lot of things that are completely out of our control that we can't do anything about. So you just do what you can, right? And that's what my message is all about with my platforms, is to really spread the information that I'm aware of, that we know about, that can help us in our efforts to become and remain healthy. But yeah, when it comes to cancer, it doesn't discriminate, right? So you just do what you can. So when it comes to alcohol, we do have a lot of studies that show that the more alcohol you drink, the higher your risk of breast cancer is. It's been suggested that the overall estimated association with drinking and breast cancer is an approximate 30 to 50% increased risk of breast cancer from 15 to 30 grams of alcohol per day. To put that into context, that's about 1 to 2 drinks a day. And this is very, very common, isn't it? Like a lot of people think that drinking alcohol on a daily, nightly basis is completely fine. It's just accepted, right? It's normalized in our society. But if you're drinking alcohol every day, I think that that's actually quite problematic. And I really would urge you to cut back and stop drinking every single day. We then had a meta-analysis of 53 studies that reported, compared with women who did not drink alcohol, the relative risk of breast cancer increased by 32% for those who drank 35 to 44 grams per day. This is approximately 3 to 4 drinks a day. And by 46% for people who drank more than 4 drinks per day. The overall relative risk of breast cancer is increased by 7% for each additional 10 grams of alcohol per day. So 10 grams of alcohol. So that is about a drink a day, okay? We also have a summary of data for lighter drinking that supported that even in women who drink less than 1 drink a day, there was a 5% increased risk of breast cancer compared to non-drinkers, okay? So alcohol is something that you do not want to be drinking. If you can completely abstain, fantastic. If you don't want to do that, and I completely understand that, I'm not 100% alcohol free, but you really want to be limiting those alcoholic drinks. And I suggest to my clients no more than 2 to 3 drinks per week. All right, so then we have the BRCA genes, right? BRCA1 and BRCA2. So I know that a lot of women are concerned about the BRCA gene. And if this is you, I want you to know that your genes are not your fate. Again, going back to what I was saying about cancer before, it's very multifaceted. And just because you have genetics for something doesn't mean that something is going to come into fruition. When it comes to the way that your genes are expressing, it's got a lot to do with your diet, your lifestyle, and your environment. And so again, that goes back to what we were talking about. You do what you can. It's not about living 100% perfectly all the time. I don't do that. That's no way to live. So you got to take a little risk in life. But it is about doing what you're doing now, which is listening to this podcast and becoming informed and doing everything you can within your power to lower your risk. And so please just know that your genes are not your fate. Even if you have the BRCA1, BRCA2 genes, they're not your fate. So you want to think about your diet, your lifestyle, everything I'm going to talk about in this podcast is what you want to really, if that is you, maybe you kick it up a notch, right? Compared to somebody who may not have those, right? That's your choice. Now, I do have a mentor, and his name is Dr. David Rosensweet, and he was saying that those women who have the BRCA genes, who are on estrogen hormone replacement therapy when they're diagnosed with breast cancer, actually do better, they fare better than women with those genes who are not on estrogen hormone replacement therapy. We'll get into that a little bit. Hormone replacement therapy and cancer and breast cancer, because I know that's a big concern of a lot of ladies. All right, so next up, diet, right? Diet is obviously very, very important. What you put in your mouth makes a big, big difference. Yes, you want to try to aim for organic whenever you can. I know for me in Australia, that can be really, really tricky. We don't have a ton of organic produce at our fingertips. I have to go to a IGA supermarket up the road here oftentimes because I actually live on a plateau. And so for me to get down from that plateau and go to another supermarket whilst I do it, it's a bit of a pain in the bum. So I go to this IGA a lot, which is around the corner. They don't have any organic produce. But, you know, I don't sweat it. It is what it is. I'm not going to consume myself with stress, which is also incredibly damaging to our health. I'm just going to do what I do. And so be it, right? And that's everyone's individual choice. But when it comes to diet, of course, try to eat organic whenever you can. I have spoken about diet a lot on this podcast, so we won't go into it in too much detail. But, you know, protein and produce, that's my mantra. You want to get really good quality animal protein, preferably organic. That is one thing that I do get at the IGA. I do get organic animal produce. So organic animal foods primarily, followed by produce, lots of different vegetables. A lot of women don't get enough vegetables into their diet. So really bumping up the vegetables and also thinking about polyphenols, which we'll talk about. And there's a few other functional foods, which we're going to get into as well. But maybe what we'll do is we'll talk about food a little bit later. And I'll go into, let me just write a note. I want to talk about that too. All right, so balancing blood sugar, all very, very important. Reducing inflammation is very important. Inflammation is definitely one of the underpinnings of all disease states, so especially in the breast. So you want to be reducing that inflammation by balancing blood sugar and by eating a good quality diet that isn't that standard American diet with processed and junky foods and excess sugar and alcohol. All right, iodine. We cannot talk breast health without talking iodine. Iodine is the mineral for breast health. So many people are concerned about iodine. It's also the mineral for thyroid health, but that's another episode. But if you have fibrocystic breasts, for example, iodine is a must. Now, I am a big believer in running an HTMA, a hair tissue mineral analysis test, before you run out and take iodine. I don't recommend that you run out and self-dose iodine because you need what we call the cofactors. Those are the nutrient friends that support iodine to do its job properly and effectively in the body. And in order to know what they are, you need to work with a health professional, right? So running a hair tissue mineral analysis test, HTMA, is a brilliant way of figuring out, or your practitioner figuring out, what nutrient imbalances and deficiencies you have, and then you can supplement accordingly and actually get a customized supplement plan for you. That's really, really important. So iodine is a must. Now, there's different types of iodine out there. I like Lugol's solution for topical. You can put it on topically if you get breast cysts. This is something that I do. I have about 3 or 4 breast cysts, very, very common. People with fibrocystic breasts have a lot of breast cysts, and I can actually sometimes make it, they're benign, but it can sometimes make it a little bit more tricky to determine breast cancer when you have those fibrocystic breasts. So you do want to do what you can to support your breast health and reduce those fibrocystic breasts and the cysts within your breast. So Lugol's solution applied topically is a great idea, something that I do myself, and then doing the HTMA and then getting a good dose of iodine, okay? I'm not going to go into dosing, but a lot of people dose far too low on iodine. I also love a brand called Violet Daily. They are a wonderful brand. They make fantastic iodine specifically for those who suffer with breast issues, fibrocystic breasts or tender breasts. That's a really great iodine to use. But honestly, I really do want to encourage you to work with a health practitioner who knows what they're doing when it comes to mineral balancing, because you can't just balance one mineral in the body. You've got to balance them with other minerals and other vitamins as well. Do an HTMA. It's what we do with our clients inside the Hormone Balance Solution. Now, if you're watching on the video, these are 2 books about iodine. If you want to learn more about iodine, Dr. David Brownstein is a absolute genius when it comes to iodine. So anything Dr. David Brownstein is highly, highly recommended. And then this is a great book too. Iodine, Why You Need It, Why You Can't Live Without It. So for those of you who aren't watching, that's one of the books, Iodine, Why You Need It, Why You Can't Live Without It. That's also Dr. David Brownstein. And then another book of his is Iodine. Oh, hang on, they're the same. I had another book on iodine. Wait 1 second. I'm going to grab this. Hold on. Oh, here it is. I think I've got a couple more. I didn't know I had 2 of those books. Breast Cancer and Iodine. Dr. David M. Derry, MD, PhD. So that's another great book as well. And then, yeah. Anyway, I thought I had another one as well. But those 2 books are really brilliant. If you want to learn more about iodine, highly, highly recommend those books. All right, so iodine. Okay, we'll talk about estrogen hormone replacement therapy in a moment and how it actually protects the breasts. So when it comes to hormone replacement therapy, a lot of women are scared, right? A lot of women think that it causes breast cancer. It does not. we'll touch on that in a minute, estrogen is protective against breast cancer. Women who are taking estrogen fare better when they're diagnosed with breast cancer than women who are diagnosed with breast cancer and are not taking estrogen. Progesterone hormone replacement therapy protects the breast. Testosterone helps to protect the breast as well. Testosterone actually prevents proliferation of cancer cells. It actually boosts what we call the beta signaling in the breast cells. So your hormones, your God-given natural hormones, not your synthetic hormones, your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone, you want to replace them when they start to get low, which starts in midlife, in your perimenopausal years, which is your mid to late 30s and your 40s. Your hormones start to decline. I mean, your hormones start to decline in your 20s, actually. So by the time you're getting into your 40s, yeah, you can assume that they're lower than they have been since your 20s. They are. So you want to be replacing. And I've done episodes on hormone replacement therapy. I'm going to be doing more episodes too. So we're not going to go into it all, but you do want to be thinking about replacing that estrogen, replacing that progesterone, replacing that testosterone when the time comes for you. Okay, so let's talk about, does estrogen cause breast cancer? The short answer is no. Again, like I've said, this is the third time now, those women who are diagnosed with breast cancer who are on estrogen, HRT, they fare better than those diagnosed with breast cancer who are not on estrogen, HRT. So that is something that we is pretty eye-opening, right? Think about it too. If estrogen caused breast cancer, why then are most breast cancers diagnosed in women who are postmenopausal? And why aren't more pregnant women who have a huge influx of estrogen in their system getting diagnosed? Why aren't we seeing this epidemic of breast cancer in pregnant women? Doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, I am going to be having a doctor on the podcast soon, Dr. Men. She has had breast cancer herself, and she speaks about estrogen and breast cancer on her Instagram a lot. So I'm really excited. She's going to be coming onto the podcast soon. So if you have questions for Dr. Men, again, just head to Instagram at Tarathon Health, DM them to me. And I will really look forward to speaking to her. She has a wealth of knowledge and she's experienced breast cancer herself, but she's an advocate for hormone replacement therapy. So stay tuned to find out more. And the other thing that I want to tell you about is this book, Estrogen Matters. Estrogen Matters, Dr. Avram Blooming and Carol Tavris, sorry. This was written by an MD who is actually an oncologist who specializes in breast cancer. And in this book, you will read about how estrogen does not cause cancer and why it is so protective and vital for midlife women and postmenopausal women to protect their health. Okay, so that's another hot tip for you. Now, the other hormone that really supports our breasts is melatonin. So what we've seen from the research is that women who have breast cancer, they've done studies on this and they've shown that some women with breast cancer have lower levels of melatonin. Low levels of melatonin, that does influence the development of any cancers, not just breast cancer, but definitely breast cancer, because it is actually an anti-cancer agent. So I've done an episode on melatonin before. It's used in oncology. They've done a lot of studies on the powerful anti-cancer mechanisms of melatonin. So definitely go back and listen to that episode because it's a real eye-opener, that one. So clinical studies have shown a disruption in the circadian rhythm with an increased risk for breast cancer. So if you're a shift worker, you really do need to take this quite seriously. Shift work, I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat this, but it is very unhealthy. And I know it's tricky. We need our shift workers, right? We love our shift workers. But if you're struggling with your health, and I have had many clients who are shift workers who I've had to have this serious conversation with, sometimes we need to make some pretty big lifestyle changes and decisions to support our health. And so when it comes to shift work, it's not healthy. And it definitely has been shown to increase the risk of cancer. And in part, this has to do with that out of whack circadian rhythm. Now, if you are a shift worker, I suppose the best thing you can do, there's not a lot you can do when you're working shift work, but I suppose on those days off, you want to try to optimize that circadian rhythm. How do we optimize the circadian rhythm? We make sure we get morning sunlight into our eyes, no sunglasses on. You want to get that sunshine into your eyes. That's really important to support the hormones that support our circadian rhythms. And then at night, you want to dim all your lights. You want to be in a really low light environment and always wear blue blockers. I have some favorite companies for blue blockers, but every single human, man, woman, child on this planet should have a pair of blue blockers, and they should go on as the sun goes down. You put them on every single night. That's going to also support your circadian rhythms. So those are two important tips. And then definitely taking melatonin is a great strategy. I'm a big fan of melatonin just because it's so powerful. It's such a potent antioxidant and anti-cancer agent. As we age, just like our other hormones decline, melatonin declines, especially if we've got poor gut health, where a lot of that melatonin is made. And melatonin also has tons of benefits for gut health, but we won't get into that. So I am a fan of melatonin. In the show notes, I will have links to my favorite blue light blocking glasses company and my favorite and only recommended melatonin that I use, my family uses, my friends use, my clients use. I don't recommend synthetic melatonin. I only recommend herbatonin, which I'll put in the show notes for you. Melatonin also reduces the ability for breast cancer to resist chemotherapy. So it can actually, if you have breast cancer, enhance chemotherapy. This has been studied when it is administered at therapeutic levels. So we're not talking physiological levels, and this is for you and your oncologist to chat about and get your oncologist to dive into the research about melatonin, because there's a lot. Physiological levels are 0.3 milligrams, whereas sometimes in oncology, they're going up 10, 20 milligrams, maybe even higher. Let's talk about, this might be a real eye-opener, the microbiome. Yes, your gut microbiome, but you also have a breast microbiome. So this is an exciting area of study. So your microbiome can increase or decrease your risk of various different cancers, but it includes breast cancer. And this has to do with a variety of different mechanisms, including regulating our steroid hormone levels in the body, regulating energy intake and utilization of various different metabolites, right? So there's a lot of different metabolites that our microbiome makes. And you want to have healthy levels of specific different metabolites. And that's a complex topic in and of itself. We have things like vitamins and LPS, lipopolysaccharide, which is actually a very potent endotoxin. It's not a good thing, causes incredible amounts of inflammation. We have modulation of the immune system by our microbiome. It plays a massive role in so many different things. And this is why I harp on and on about gut health. And this is one of the reasons why we always run a stool test with our ladies. You've got to optimize your gut health. It affects your breast health and so many other things. So a lot of different bacteria have been associated with breast cancer. Even bacteria that camp out in the oral cavity have been associated with breast cancer. You may have heard how the oral cavity bacteria can get into your bloodstream, right? And it gets circulated to different parts of the body, can contribute to cardiovascular disease, your oral microbiome. But the same is true for your breast health and your breast microbiome. So oral bacteria can actually make its way, what we call translocate via the bloodstream into the breast. Fusobacterium, there's a particular kind of fusobacterium. We actually see fusobacterium on the GI map, but the one that they spoke about in this study was Fusobacterium nucleatum. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And how that plays a role in breast tumors. They've actually found an accumulation of this bacteria in breast tumors. Now we have Bacteroides, there's an important distinction there, fragilis. So this is also one that we see on the GI map that we run with our clients. So Bacteroides fragilis is a toxin, can be a toxin producing strain. And when it's present in the gut or the breast tissue, it can increase the aggressiveness of breast cancers. Again, going back to that gut, doing that stool test. Please don't choose a hormone test over a stool test. You're not going to get any information from a hormone test. The hormone test tells you a snapshot in time. This one day you did it, you had higher estrogen to progesterone or vice versa. Okay, now what? So what? What are you going to do? That was a snapshot in time. That's meaningless. But when you go and do a stool test and you look at the gut and you look at your microbiome, you might see you've got Bacteroides fragilis in there. You might see the oral bacteria. We see oral bacteria. There's a few different kinds that we see on the GI map, right? When we talk to our ladies, we always talk about their oral health, wisdom teeth. If they've had them removed, that can impact your oral microbiome and your gut microbiome, and hence your breast microbiome. Root canals, we always talk about these things with our ladies. Then we have the oral administration of Lactobacillus acidophilus can result in anti-cancer activity in mice bearing breast cancer, breast tumors. So that's exciting and interesting area of study. So we spoke about the gut microbiome, toxins potentially reach the breast tissue. They generate these gut microbes, generate these metabolites, which can either hinder or promote breast cancer development. Remember, it's not just about these bacteria promoting the breast cancer. A lot of these bacteria have to be in robust enough levels to hinder breast cancer and other cancer progression. The other thing that's interesting about the gut microbiome is that there is an enzyme in there called beta-glucuronidase. Now, we see this on the GI map. This is what we typically term phase 3 estrogen metabolism. So you've got phase 1 and phase 2, which happens in the liver. And then you have phase 3, which really happens in the gut. And you need a healthy microbiome. The estrogen microbiome in the gut's called the estrobolome. We need that healthy microbiome. We need enough bile, and we need to be able to actually conjugate our estrogen in order for it to be removed from the body. And if we have a lot of this enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, if it's elevated, which we'll see on the GI map, then it can actually deconjugate this estrogen, pull it apart so that it can't be escorted out of the body. And then it just recirculates, and it can definitely cause some issues. You want to be metabolizing your hormones properly in the body. That's actually very, very important. And the gut plays a massive role here, right? The gut also plays a massive role in inflammation. Our gut is really what regulates our inflammation levels in the body. And I spoke about inflammation a little bit before. It really is the underpinning of a lot of disease states. So if you have an unhealthy gut, maybe you have a leaky gut and those enterocytes, those intestinal cells are pulling apart more than they should, then there are things leaking into the bloodstream that shouldn't be there, like that lipopolysaccharide I spoke about earlier, and they're very inflammatory, and they're leaking into that bloodstream and generating a huge kick of inflammation. And so that's very unhealthy. So gut health, gut health, gut health. It plays a role in your breast health. We also know we've got multiple studies to show that obesity definitely plays a role in breast cancer. So it's very, very important to get on top of your weight. You want to be a healthy weight. There's nothing cool about promoting obesity, and that is absolutely, utterly nonsense and ridiculous. And, not to shame anybody, that's not what we're here to do, shame and judge. We're here to support and help. And the way we support and help is by educating on the facts. And the facts are obesity is incredibly unhealthy. And so if you need support with your weight, just reach out. We can help you. There are multiple different strategies and tools that you can implement to become and stay a healthy weight. All right, I said I'd circle back around to food. So we'll talk about food real quick, and then I'm going to touch on mammograms and ultrasounds, in my opinion. So cruciferous vegetables are a must. They really support that healthy estrogen metabolism in the body. If you can't eat cruciferous vegetables, if you have an issue with sulfur, then you have an issue potentially with your gut microbiome. So again, circles back to that gut stool test. And you probably have an excess of particular bacteria that need addressing that can absolutely contribute to a sulfur sensitivity. You may have a genetic SNP. There's a couple of different genetic enzymes which can, depending on your heritage, depending on your overall health, they can actually be downregulated, making it really difficult for you to metabolize sulfur. So please know, if you can't tolerate cruciferous vegetables, there's a reason. and it's got to do, and you need some support with specific nutrients and minerals to support those enzymes. You also need a gut stool test to see if you're making that bacteria or those metabolites that are going to exacerbate the way that you're reacting to sulfur-based foods. But otherwise, if you don't have those issues, if you do, you need some support. If you don't eat cruciferous vegetables, the other category of foods that's really, really breast cancer and cancer preventative and gut microbiome supportive are polyphenols, blue, black, purple foods. Eat as many of them as you can. They very potent anti-cancer compounds in those blue, black, purple foods. Okay, soy. This is hotly debated. There's still a lot of misinformation about soy and flax. Soy and flax are very healthy, very protective against breast cancer. So soy does reduce the risk of and the reoccurrence of breast cancer. So does flax. We have this research. Soy contains a large amount of what we call chemopreventatives, which can inhibit or delay or even reverse cancer. Now, in particular, soy has been shown to protect against breast and uterine cancer. It is a strong goitrogen, so if you do have a thyroid issue, just be kind of cautious, but you really want to limit your soy consumption to 1 to 2 serves per week. And you never want to eat the processed food, soy, right? So no soy isoflavones. You don't want to eat them. So you don't want to be having the soy protein powder. You don't want to be having soy pills, right? Soy supplements. The isolates, don't take them. They can be harmful, not healthy. You want to have organic fermented soy, right? So we're talking tempeh and miso. So no soy milk, no soy protein powders, none of that junk, okay? And then flax is very protective against both primary and secondary breast cancer. It inhibits the growth of both estrogen receptor positive and estrogen receptor negative breast cancer types. And this has got to do with the lignans in the flax. So we do love flax. We do love soy when it's in the right form. We love polyphenols. We love cruciferous vegetables. And in general, that real healthy protein and produce diet, okay? Okay, so mammograms and ultrasounds. I am a fan at this point in time. I myself got a mammogram and an ultrasound done before I went on estrogen HRT. I have a mentor, again, it's Dr. David Rosensweet, and he was saying, he's actually told a couple of stories about clients of his that have gone for mammograms and they were they were very, very small tumors that were found. And he said that in these women, there was a 100% cure rate. And he has also spoken about clients who have chosen not to get mammograms and gone down the thermography route, and they actually haven't had their breast cancers detected at an early enough stage, and some of them have passed away. So, you know, he's a very knowledgeable doctor who's been in the field for many, many decades. It's just his stories that he's talking about there, but he's a big proponent. I personally think at this point in time, it's a good idea to get mammograms, ultrasounds, especially if you have fibrocystic dense breasts, getting an ultrasound as well as that mammogram is a good idea. You don't want to just rely on that mammogram. Thermography, sure, if you want to do it, I would never rely on it myself. It can show heat in the breast, which can show inflammation. And again, we've spoken about it, inflammation, no good. You want to do things you can to reduce inflammation in the body, but I wouldn't rely on that. And especially if you have a high risk of breast cancer, and you know, if you've got familial risk, right, in your family, then you want to be doing the mammograms, the ultrasounds, in my opinion. But do your own research and talk to your doctor about what might be best for you. So that's it for breast health. I hope that you found that interesting. And if you have any questions at Tarathon Health, as always, I welcome you to come on over there. Stay tuned. We have got Dr. Men coming up on the podcast, and she is going to be, I cannot wait. She's going to be awesome to speak to, all about estrogen, breast cancer survivors, and whether they can take estrogen or not. So stay tuned, and we'll speak to you all soon. Bye for now.